Okay, good morning. So we're starting a new Siman Shin Nun. Din Hamaitzi Roshe Verubai Mishus Rishus. Says the Mechaber. Oimeit Adam Bishus Hayochid. A person can be standing in a Rishus Hayochid. Umaitzi Yodai Rishus Rabim. And he stretches out his hands into Rishus Rabim. Umatalta Sham Chafetzim. He's allowed to do that. He's allowed to be standing in a Rishus Hayochid and put his hands and stretches his hands through to a Rishus HaYochid and move a key there and do these things. He doesn't need them in his Rishus HaRabim where he's standing. He can sort of move them around in the Rishus HaYochid. So long as you don't move them arba amas. So if he's standing, in the Rishus HaYochid, and he stretches his hand into Rishus HaRabim and he can move something a little bit, so long as he doesn't move it daled amas, he's allowed to do that. And we're not worried that he might spring them into his Rishus. Because remember, the issue of Hotzah on Shabbos is, he's taking it from one Rishus to another Rishus. So he's taking it from Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRabim, or Rabim to a Yochid, or he's doing Daled Amas in the Rishus HaRabim. That's the issue of Hotzah on Shabbos. In this situation, the guy standing in Rishus HaYochid, he's putting his hand through into Rishus HaRabim and he's moving something around. That's not a problem because he's not moving it Daled Amas, and we're not worried he might bring it back to him in the Rishus HaYochid. Okay. And therefore, other way around, he's allowed to stand in the Rishus HaRabim, and put his hand into the Rishus HaYochid and open up the door there, because he's not doing a havara from Rishus HaYochid to Rabim or vice versa, nor is he doing Daled Amas in the Rishus HaRabim. V'chein Rishus HaYochid, Rishus HaRabim, no problem. Okay, let's just do the Mishnah Berurah till there. It says the Mishnah Berurah, she'enam strichim loy, va'afilu hem kelim noim. Even if they're nice kelim, which you may think maybe he'll bring them into his rishus, we're not worried about that. Shelo yavirim arba amas pirush. Afal pishu Rishus HaYochid. Even though the guy is standing in Rishus HaYochid, rak shebi yodim moilech chayvetz arba amas b'mokum shehu munach ad soif arba amas b'Rishus HaRabim, that he's moving something with his outstretched hands a little bit in Rishus HaRabim, and if he were to move it 4 amas chayev, even if he does it above 10 tefachim, which is therefore mokum p'tur, because if he were to be standing in Rishus HaYochid and put his hand through and move something like from his front garden, for example, and then take something with his outstretched hand from Rishus HaRabim, and he moves it daled amas, he's going to be chayev because he's done a havara daled amas. Little mafteach Rishus HaYochid hainu shamaftech munach sham. So, for example, what the Mechaber is saying over here is he can stand in Rishus HaYochid so long as he's not doing a havara from Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRabim or vice versa, or he's not doing something a daled amas in Rishus HaRabim, he's okay, and we're not worried he's going to take it to him. So therefore, a guy can be standing in Rishus HaRabim and he can put his hand into Rishus HaYochid, take a key, and move it around and open it up, no problem. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Gimel, little maftech Rishus HaYochid, hainu shamaftech munach sham, because the key is in the Rishus HaYochid kvar already. V'noit lem b'sham pesach adeles, and you can just take it and open the door. Umayri ba'ofen shalizei netilas maftech v'mkoma eino oval issa hitzah. We're talking about where there's no issa hitzah in moving the key. He's just taking the key, which is, let's say, hanging next to the door, and he just opens the door from, he's standing in the Rishus HaRabim and he's stretching his hand in, and he's not doing a hitzah there. He's just moving the key to open the door. No problem. He says over there, Mepeset, some sort of overhang or balcony, Mechutz Labayis v'Haganag, also Mechitzas Kedin Rishus HaYochid. So therefore, the key is in a Rishus HaYochid, no problem. Oishem Aftech Tochuv Sham B'Manul Hakavua B'Deles is sort of attached to like on a string to the door. V'Ayin Le'el B'Simen Shin Menvov Sif Gimel B'Hagor Mashe Kosav in the Mishnah Berurah. And you can open it up. We're not worried he might bring the key out from the Rishus HaYochid into the Rishus HaRabim where he's standing. Why would he want to? He doesn't need it outside, he needs to just open the door. The other way around, he's standing in Rishus HaYochid, and he can open up his shop there in the Rishus HaRabim. That's again allowed. So just to summarize what we've said so far, we're saying that if a person is standing in one Rishus, he's allowed to stretch his hand into the other Rishus and to do a little bit of a havara, to just move something. Let's say the key is there, and to open the door in the Rishus HaYochid, or if he's standing in the Rishus HaYochid and he wants to stretch his hand into the Rishus HaRabim and open the key to his shop, he's allowed to do that. Because again, the whole problem is, Hotzah is only if you go from one Rishus to another, from Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRabim, or vice versa, or you do Daled Amis in Rishus HaRabim. In this situation, we're not worried at all, because he's not doing any of that, and we're not worried that he might take it from one Rishus to another Rishus. Now, however, Avol, now carrying on the Machaba, we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down. Avol lo yama b'Rishus HaYochid v'yotzi rosh Rishus HaRabim v'yishteh shama yibcha. There are situations where we are worried. For example, if he's standing in a Rishus HaYochid, Chazal do not allow him to stretch his head over into Rishus HaRabim and drink there, or the opposite, if he's in a Rishus HaRabim, but to put his head into Rishus HaYochid and to drink there, elim kein yachnis roshei v'ruba, unless the majority of his head and body is there, l'mokum shil sheis, in the place where he's drinking. Why? T'kiven shil tzorech le'elu hamayim, since he needs this water, chashin Hashem yavim elov, we're worried he might bring the water to where he is, and that's he's done a havara from one rishus to another. But if it's a carmelis, then that would be allowed. Says the Mishnah Berurah, shil tzorech v'chein, obein hamayim the sunim b'kelim noim, whether the water is in nice kelim, einam noim v'chein kol kiyetz b'zeh ka'achim malbushin lefi shein chafetz matzrichim minkoyme. Right now, I'm, let's say, in the Rishus HaYochid, and I want to reach over to the Rishus HaRabim to get the water and drink over there. The concern is that I might bring it back, so therefore it's tzrichim b'minkoyme, and therefore we don't allow it. If, however, it's a carmelis, says Rashi, then it says Mishnah Berurah, then it'll be okay. Why? Sifkat and Zayin. The Bishus Rabim Gufu Rak Mishtam Gezerah. The whole concern is a Gezerah. Maybe you'll bring it back. Shemi Vienu Etzloi. V'loi Gazrin and Gezerah Gezerah. And for a Carmelis, which itself is Rabbanon, we're not going to make a Gezerah Gezerah. Okay, carrying on the Machaba. V'yesh Mefarshim. I'm 2 lines from the bottom. V'yesh Mefarshim. There are those who say that if you're talking about kelim noim, which you need, some say that you don't need the kelim, you just stretch your head out and you want to drink over there, even if it's just your neck and not your whole rosh v'rubai, that would be okay. We're only geyser in those situations, but the Mishnah Berurah says in Sifkat and Ches v'ha'ika kasvara rishona, i.e., like the first opinion. So just to summarize, what have we said? The Mechaba has said so far in Sif Aleph that if a person, again, the Issa of Hotzah would be carrying something from one Rishus to another, Rishus HaYochid to Rabim and Rabim to Yochid, or Havaras Daled Amis in the Rishus Rabim. But if you are standing in, let's say, in a Rishus HaYochid, and you stretch your hand into a Rishus HaRabim, and you just move something very, a smaller distance, less than 4 amos there, we're not worried. We're not worried that you might come to pull it back to the Rishus HaYochid, and vice versa. So therefore, if you're standing in the Rishus HaRabim, and you put your hand into the Rishus HaYochid, and you want to open a door with a key that's in the Rishus HaYochid, which is very near the door, and you can just hang in, you can stretch your hand in, no problem. And vice versa, if you're in Rishus HaYochid and you want to stretch out to open the door of the chanus of the shop, which is in the Rishus Rabim, and you're not doing Havarat Daled Amis, no problem. We're not worried you're going to carry from one to the other or do it Havarat Daled Amis. However, when it comes to drinking, then we are worried. Because there, if you stretched out and you're in Rishus HaYochid and you stretch out into Rishus Rabim to have a drink in Rishus Rabim, the concern is that you might bring it back to the Rishus HaYochid, and Chazal would only allow it if Rosh V'Rubai is in the Rishus where you're drinking. That's the summary of Sif Aleph. Okay, let's do Sif Beis and Gimel. Beis. Lo Yamid Adam Birshus Harabim V'Yashtin Ayoroik Birshus HaYochid. The person should not stand in Rishus Rabim and urinate or spit into Rishus HaYochid, or bekarmelis, or into a karmelis or ibcha. Afinim haitzi piv va'amos lechutz. Even if the piv or his amo is in that rishus, and where he's urinating into or where he's spitting into, we don't allow it. Says the Mishnah Berurah v'yashna york. The mashem moitzi hashesna yaroik migufay Zemikra akira. When it leaves your body, that's called an akira. Vim hishtin Orach chayiv chatas, and therefore if you urinate or you spit, chayiv chatas to machshavta shel tzarich lezeh meshavel mokum, because your intention to sort of spit it out, to urinate out, makes it considered the place where it leaves a mokum. And therefore it's leaving a place which has got arba tfachim, and therefore it's considered a proper akira. To kim the rishus l'rishus who is a deraisa, since transferring something from one rishus to another is a deraisa. Memele bekarmelis nami also. I'll call upon him a drabonon, because at the end of the day it's going to be also drabonon. And so too, if you were standing in a Rishus Rabim, and therefore you're mashtin or you spit a distance more than 4 amas, then you're also going to have a problem because you've been ma'avir dalad amas in the Rishus Rabim. Piv v'amos lachutz, even though your mouth, the amah may be bachutz, we don't start measuring from where it sort of leaves the body. Thank you. We leave the place from where we measure from the place where it's left, i.e. your guf. And you are standing in another rishus. Or piv nami shadinan leibosa haguf, and the piv also goes after the body of the person. And therefore it's as if you're transferring from one rishus to another. The implication from the Mechaber is that it doesn't make a difference if it's Rishus Harabim or Rishus Yochid, or if it's from Rishus Harabim or Yochid into a Karmelis. Omnom. But via Hagrakos, the Gan argues. There he writes, to Kimin the Ze'adin Dasrinim Rishus 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 Raisu Rak Mitam Sfeika the Asik B'Gemara B'Teiku. The Gemara there actually has it a suffix. We only answer from one rishus to another rishus because the Gemara says it's a teiku and it leaves it as a suffix. Therefore, says the Gan, yesh lanu lahakel b'zeh b'kamlis v'husfeik v'drabanon, because ultimately it's a suffix in a drabanon. And therefore the Gan would actually allow it from a one rishus into a karmelis, because he understands that would be a suffix in the drabanon, which we are maker with. Okay, so fine. So just to summarize base, that a person wants to urinate or spit from one rishus to another, he's got a problem, because that's considered havara from one rishus to another, and therefore that needs to be avoided. Gimel, rukai shenislash mipiv. Let's say a person's got some phlegm in his mouth and it's detached. In other words, it's not deep into his throat, but he's brought up the phlegm. And it's ready for him to spit it out. Some say that he's got a sort of a amount of liquid in his mouth that he shouldn't walk dalad amas until he actually spits it out, because it's considered carrying. The liquid in his mouth is considered carrying. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Muchan Lazarkai, I am Beli Rabbi Shekosov, the Davka B'Shekvanis Hapei Chareich B'Fiv V'Omed Lotzes. It's detached in your mouth, and it's ready to be spat out. Then to go for to walk dalad amas with that in your mouth might be considered hoitzah. Nevertheless, ein lozus mizeh shekein das kama rishonim, and therefore says the Mishnah Berurah, this is the actual halacha of the many rishonim, and therefore you should not walk dalad amas with the saliva which is detached and ready to be spat out, which is in your mouth. Sheyelech arba amas v'uadin sheyelech oz mishus rishus ad sheyorek. Since it's about to be sort of thrown out of your mouth, masu hava, it's considered a masui, and therefore you should not walk dalad amas with that in your mouth. Okay, Beseda, let's leave it there.